Top tens. So I'm going to do a top 10 list. People have asked for this. I'm going to do my top 10 favorites. Now, I did this a long time back where I talked about my favorite broadcasters. So I'm going to go with broadcast teams. And I'm doing this because The Athletic today, they had their top 31 list, which apparently everybody voted on. And there were some votes, and I looked at the results and I went, I don't know. And the thing is that having the NHL center ice package for the last 3 years and watching every game I can, I get a really good feel for which broadcast crews I'm really excited to watch this because in part they have a really good broadcast team. And what's interesting is that the fact that there's a good team means that even though there may be one very, very entertaining person, if you're weighing the entire commentary team, it kind of gets weighed down. So no further ado, and again, part of the reason I'm doing this is because I don't really necessarily agree with the top 31, because nobody will, and that's the great thing, and nobody's going to agree with my top 10 either. So that's where we're at. And what's interesting to me as well in looking at this was that there were huge differences between how fans felt locally about a group a pairing, and how everybody outside of that market felt, except Boston. Boston, it was a pretty low score. I'm going to say this with them. They obviously don't make my top 10. John Edwards, the bias is strong, and it's too bad because John Edwards is actually very good at announcing a game. And the other too bad about it is I love Andy Brickley. Andy Brickley is fantastic. Is he biased? Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was interesting too that they had. I don't have Florida in here, but Florida would have been in here. Last year because Denny Potvin, I loved his absolute huge bias. It was amazing. And that's what people marked it down for. So I don't necessarily see bias as a negative. It depends on where it shows up, when it shows up, and how. So some of the bias, it's okay in small doses. It's understandable with regional broadcasts to me. Some people say, "Oh, that broadcaster's biased." Well, it's a regional broadcast. They're basically broadcasting to their fans. So I'm not going to give out a bunch of honorable mentions because honestly, that gets kind of messy too. Then it's going to be, well, why didn't you mention Rick Janneret? All right, well, I didn't mention Rick Janneret, but I'm sorry. And yeah, that didn't make the top 10 either. Close, though. When you have a guy who sounds like Bobby Heenan as your color commentator, you get close. So, number 10. Yeah, I'll go with this one at 10. And I'll also include the team that they do the commentary for, and that's Rick Peckham and Brian Engblom for Tampa Bay. Uh, yeah, good, smart. Like one of the things with the commentary is, have you ever heard it and gone, wait, that's really over the line? No, Tampa Bay is pretty down the middle. Tampa Bay, there isn't a whole lot of homerism that I've heard in Tampa Bay broadcasts. And so, kudos to them for that. So again, I'm not going to, complain about homerism a lot in this list, but it is nice when I listen to a broadcast crew and they're pretty down the middle. When it gets to penalties, almost no crew is completely down the middle. Almost nobody is completely down the middle when it comes to the topic of penalties. Number 9. Yeah, I'll go with these ones. Alex Faust and Jim Fox for the LA Kings. Again with Fox Sports. Fox Sports has some good commentary teams. They do. When I see that I have a choice between NBC crew or a Fox Sports crew when I'm looking for feeds, I very often go with Fox Sports. And again, it's not a matter of down the middle. Sometimes it's just a matter of who's more entertaining. Faust and Fox are pretty entertaining. Faust does his best to keep the spirits of the LA Kings fans up, and I respect that. And yeah, so they come in at ninth for me. Number 8, yeah, okay, I'll go with this one at 8. So Jim Houston gets a lot of flack from Toronto fans. Craig Simpson not as much. They do get flack because there is some perception that they're not fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what you hear. But Houston and Simpson, that's voices that remind me of playing NHL games and all that. And yet, does it get kind of stale? Yeah, probably. But I don't have a problem with Houston and Simpson. They were actually really low on the Athletic countdown. It's part of the reason I'm doing a list of my top 10 because I thought they were just too low. And again, I understand there are Toronto fans, and I saw in the article they were saying, well, I don't even think they like the Leafs. There's a perception that they're cheering against the Leafs. I don't think so. I really don't think Houston cheers for the Boston Bruins against Toronto as an example. Vancouver, maybe. Houston, of course, was a Vancouver Canucks commentator for a long time. And, I saw him a great save, Cloutier, and it was just, that was the thing. And that's part of the reason why when I think of Dan Cloutier, and I've got a poster on the wall now with Cloutier, part of the reason that I don't, detest Cloutier the way that some Canuck fans did is great save Cloutier was said a lot. And, during playoff times, that's a whole other conversation. And at some point, we'll talk about that in a Cloutier video. But, Houston, I do remember some of the great moments for the Canucks with Houston calling it. So I understand. I understand the perception of that. Whether it's there or it's not, I don't know. I can just say, yeah, I understand. Number 7. Now, some of the TSN crews are really good. And this TSN crew was ranked low, and I'm not sure what it is. So, if you're a Jets fan, by all means, if you guys could let us know why Jets fans rated it really low. Because they did. And yet, this crew, outside of Winnipeg, did pretty well. So, I'm going to have them at number 7, and that's Dennis Bayak, Kevin Sawyer, and Ray Ferraro. Dennis Bayak is one of the best best play-by-play guys in the NHL. No word of a lie. I really like him a lot. I think he's excellent at his job. And I was really surprised to see they weren't in the top 15. I think they were like 18th or 19th on the Athletics. So that really surprised me because I think they're quite good. And, here we are with them at number 7 on my list. But if you're a Jets fan, you're probably looking to go, no, I wouldn't have them there. I'm not sure what it is. But they I think do a very good job of being down the middle. Jets broadcasts through TSN are pretty good. The perception also seems to be that TSN has the better commentators and Sportsnet has the better presentation somewhat. Out of Calgary, Eric Francis is not a popular person with locals. Eric Francis, and I get it too. I've read some of Eric Francis's articles on Sportsnet, for instance, and I've been like, man, I get it. I understand why Calgary Flames fans don't like this. This is not great. And his hot takes do tend to cause a lot of people to get talking. But that's something that'll keep him employed. If everybody's talking about you and clicking on your articles, then that tells your employer, hey, we got to keep this guy around because he generates attention. So that's one thing to consider. Number 6. I don't want to seem I don't want to have them too low. Yeah, I'll go with this at number 6. But I think these guys were really low. This is another reason I'm doing a top 10 because Ken Daniels is fantastic. And Mickey Redmond. I agreed with the one quote in the article too from a Red Wings fan that said that they don't know that he's going to have the patience to go all the way through this rebuild. I agree. There are nights where he just sounds completely exasperated. But man, Mickey Redmond's just a lot of fun to listen to. Yeah, yes. There is a rampant homerism with Mickey Redmond. I'm not sure what people expect from the regional broadcast with the Wings. And honestly, it's kind of nice when the team is as bad as this team has been. And that's why I'm wearing Red Wings, because, hey, I like the Red Wings broadcast, and I thought it was kind of odd that Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond were low, especially that some of the quotes that they used from people voting was, oh, yeah, Ken Daniels is basically a treasure in the broadcast booth, but, well, no, just end it at that. Ken Daniels is excellent in the broadcast booth. Why do we need to have that happen? Number 5. Let me finish writing it. finish writing it. John Shorthouse, John Garrett, John and John, the Vancouver broadcast team, well respected locally, outside the Vancouver fan base. They actually scored pretty high. They weren't top 10, but they weren't that far out of it. And for me, they are one of my favorite teams to listen to. Now, this is where familiarity comes in. There are a lot of fans of certain teams that'll say, I really like this commentator, and familiarity is part of it, where it kind of takes you back. And John Garrett on color, it really does. It's a connection to Canucks that I've got on the wall over on this side here. And I really think John Shorthouse is excellent at calling a game. I think he's one of the best play-by-play guys. And their chemistry with each other is actually quite funny. I will routinely laugh when I'm listening to them talk to one another during the games. And John Garrett is excellent at kind of putting himself down in a nice, fun way. And so, yeah, yes, there is some rampant bias on some side, but, Vancouver's, I think, got one of the better broadcast teams. I also want to throw in here at this point, Brian Hayward ranked really, really low, and he's the color commentator for Anaheim. Anaheim has a very good tandem, and if I was doing top 15, Anaheim likely makes it. I was actually surprised at how much people get mad at Hayward, because here's the reason. I'm going through all of these broadcasts. Almost all of them sound like homers. Almost all of them. When there's a big major penalty, if I've got two broadcasts, I will flip back and forth between the two. So somebody takes a really nasty hit into the boards. Usually, you will hear a differing opinion from the two broadcast crews. And sometimes it's egregious enough that they both agree that hit was offside, that hit was bad. But you will usually hear a bit of a difference there. I don't think homerism is an awful thing in a broadcast crew. There is a limit. I agree there's a limit, but I don't really hear Brian Hayward cross that line. So again, that's just me. I'm just throwing that in there at this point where I'm talking about Garrett and Shorthouse. But yeah, Shorthouse is a really good commentator, and I'm hoping that at some point he moves up from regional to national broadcasts on a regular basis. As much as it would pain me to see him not on the Sportsnet Pacific anymore, he's that good. Number 4. Yeah, I'll put them at 4. Gord Miller. And they rotate. They rotate who's with Gord Miller. So I'll put 4 different color analysts. And that's for, of course, Ottawa broadcasts. Now, the Ottawa Senators, much like Detroit, may not have any chance of making any kind of a Stanley Cup playoffs if we have them this year. But Gord Miller is one of the best play-by-play guys. And I've talked about how Gord Miller, in a game I watched this year, actually had a really good flow of the game with Pierre Maguire. And so, that tells you how well Gord Miller runs a game. So it's not surprising to me that Gord Miller ranked really highly on this one as well, and they had 4 different color commentators. And Ottawa fans like that they rotate who's doing the color commentary on this. Ray Ferraro, who's down here with Winnipeg, he's done color commentary in the Ottawa games as well, and they've done color commentary on Montreal games as well. I didn't have the Montreal crew in here, and I'm going to say why I didn't have the Montreal crew in here. There's too many. There's so many different crews for Montreal games, and so to me, I'm like, is there any one crew that like Randorf calls games, but you don't always get so for me, it's like, okay, I want to go with where we have a standard crew. So Montreal is overall a pretty strong broadcast. And if you haven't watched a Montreal game in French, you're missing out. I'm old enough to remember when we had 13 channels. Yep. And so if there wasn't a Hockey Night in Canada game on that I wanted to watch on CBC, I'd have to go over to the French version of CBC and listen to it in French, which is why I learned hockey in French. Not French, just hockey in French. It's different. You're just learning the hockey words. It's sort of like I've learned Rammstein in German. So, that's important, where I'm like, okay, let's see. What is which Rammstein song was that from? Oh, I know what that word means. So it's sort of like French. Oh, that's a hockey term. I know what that is. That's goal. That's assist. That's, that kind of thing. So yeah, Ottawa, Gord Miller, excellent overall, no matter who's with them. Says a lot about Gord Miller. Number 3. I knew I was going to bugger that up. Josh and Daryl Ray, Dallas Stars. If you haven't watched Dallas broadcasts, you're missing out. Dallas has an excellent announce team. Daryl Ray is one of the most fantastic announcers in sports. And he can kind of do everything. So the fact that he can kind of do everything is fantastic. And he's another one on this board that he was a goaltender, and sometimes some of the guys who are goaltenders can be very interesting on color. And he's not the last of the goaltenders that's on this board either. But yeah, I really honestly really enjoy watching Dallas games for the announcers. Again, they're pretty down the middle. I don't hear a lot of bias from them. And yeah, it's a good show when you've got Josh and you got Daryl Ray in there. So and Daryl Ray is the one who gets talked about the most because he can do both. He can do play by play if he has to. So fantastic. Number 2 for me. So for me, this is number 2. Now this was number 1 on their list. And here's where it's interesting, and hopefully the Athletic doesn't mind me telling people how this turned out. John Forsland and Trip Tracy were voted number 1 by fans in the market and by fans outside the market. And this is where I find it kind of funny. Trip Tracy, highly in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. Oh, absolutely. But it's fun to listen to. It is. And the Carolina crew, like John Forsland, is fantastic at his craft as with the play-by-play. And Trip Tracy is he's entertaining to listen to as well. So I can't really say anything bad about either of these guys on commentary. And I get why they were number 1 inside the market and number 1 outside the market. That says a lot about the quality of commentary with Carolina. But at number 1, it's another John. Look at that. Another John. This should surprise nobody who's been a fan of this channel for any period of time. John Kelly and Darren Pang. Darren Pang is one of the best people in the game. When Jay Bouwmeester went down in Anaheim, and thankfully he's okay now. There's been reports even over the last couple of days that he's okay. Stay home, Jay Bouwmeester, and everybody stay away from him. Darren Pang, he was great. He was fantastic during that. John Kelly, absolutely, he is one of the best play-by-play callers as well. I mean, if I was doing this just by play-by-play, it would probably be a little bit of a different order. But I'm going by the actual tandem, and Panger is just fantastic. He really is. He is absolutely fantastic at his job. You can't not like Darren Pang. If you say, "Oh, I don't really like Darren Pang," then I don't know what to say to you. You must not be a big fan of hockey, because Panger sort of embodies everything about hockey. He was a backup goaltender. Didn't have an extremely long career in the NHL. He is self-effacing, sort of like John Garrett here. Kelly Rudy does that as well with Calgary. Anybody who's a goaltender, they will be kind of, there's that self-deprecating humor that shows up, and really Panger's the best at it. He really is. He's fantastic, and his stories are great, and his ability to interview the players after the game and get sound bites out of them that aren't just, well, we got to get pucks deep, and yeah, this was a big one for us, but the next one's bigger, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's actually interesting interviews with Panger, and I do like that a lot. So there you go. 10 through 1, my favorite broadcast teams in the NHL. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.